Hello and welcome back to Dry Conversations. I'm your host, Whitney Cowell. Joining me today is Chris Chavez. Hey, Chris.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here. So for anybody that doesn't know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you've been up to recently?
Cool. Yeah. So my name is Chris Chavez. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a videographer, and so I've been doing just creating marketing content for businesses, and then little things for me. I'm a huge movie buff, so I do like entertainment news, like on the side, on like YouTube and TikTok. So I'm always creating stuff, just having fun.
That's so cool to meet, especially another creative. It's very nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So we've been connected online for quite some time. This is our first time actually sitting down and talking, and it's over a podcast about a really important topic.
It's true. A very interesting topic that kind of is something that's unfortunately common. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would love to just kind of hand the microphone over and have you start from the beginning with what happened. What's brought us here today?
Yeah. So the topic that we'll be talking about is divorce. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic, it's like I said, it's something that's unfortunately common, and it's if people are in similar situations, like in my story, if there's something that resonates with things that I've done to overcome that could help somebody, that's the goal. And hopping on with you today is just to try to help someone in any way possible. So my story began. I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So Breaking Bad, the desert. That's where I'm from. And so I was out there after college. I met this girl in college. She was one of the theater kids with me. And so being theater people, you kind of mingle with everybody. You get along with everybody. And so when college ended, kind of a year after, didn't keep touch with anything, and then finally got reunited with her and started dating, and then dating turned into more, and then started, got engaged, and then we got married. So I think it was, we were still in Albuquerque for 1 year of our marriage, and then we're trying to find a way to leave Albuquerque because there's nothing to do out there. And my brother-in-law at the time lived in Seattle, and he goes, "Hey, I'm starting this business. Do you want to move?" And without thinking, I was like, yes, I do. And so we moved to Seattle. Now, I don't know if I should go backwards to go forwards because it doesn't matter. At the time I had, when you have a friend that's like borderline brother or sister, they're like that close.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I had a friend just like that. We were always together, always hanging out. And so moving to Seattle, I was there, I don't know, a week maybe. One night hanging out in our apartment, waiting for our things to come, like in a few weeks. And she just said, "I need to talk to you." I'm like, "Oh, all right, what's going on?" She confessed that she has been cheating on me for the 2 years that we've been together with,
oh my gosh,
the said friend. And it was interesting because, there's more going forward, but thinking back on certain things and certain interactions, it all made sense. Like if I would be at work, I would come home, his car's there. He would say, "Hey, I'm just hanging out waiting for you to go see a movie or something." So little things started to connect in my
life. That's a lot of loss in one conversation. It sounds like, or I might be projecting what's coming down next in the story, but
yeah. So it was, once a bombshell hit, it was one of those things where I'm in a new city. I don't know anybody. I don't have a friend. I don't have family. I just have my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, which ironically enough, my sister-in-law didn't help with anything. She was more on her sister's side, which I get. You have to stay with family.
Yeah, sure.
I get.
But well, I don't know. I have certain boundaries that, truth and love.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was one of those things where I didn't know what to do. And so I honestly drank a lot because it was the only thing, it was the only thing that kind of, I don't say blocked it out, but kept it going. It kept me kind of feeling as depressed as I was. So I would go to work and then drink at lunch and then afterwards, and just kind of do that from time to time.
How long did it take to escalate drinking at lunch? Because that's a little milestone, I feel like, in addiction.
It was Gosh, I want to say maybe like a week after, because every conversation that I would have with her about what's going on, it would always lead to like things like I actually love him and I miss him.
Mm.
And I found books that have like do's and don'ts, or like pros and cons of me and him. And like I found all these weird things, and it was just
Oh,
one thing after another just pile up on top of it.
yeah. Okay.
So it kind of escalated quickly because of things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, unfortunately. But then one night it was one of those nights where you kind of reach the lowest of low that kind of snaps you out of it. Does that make sense?
For
So
sure.
it was one night where I just went out with some random people that I met to a karaoke place. I don't know why karaoke. And the only thing I remember is somehow walking out, passing out on the there was this bank at the front of the bank, just on the floor of the bank. I woke up and I don't know how I made it home, because I had to go through a few blocks to get home. I don't know how I made it home walking. No clue. And it was the morning that I woke up from that. I was still completely just wasted. I passed out in the bathroom, hit my face on the bathtub, broke my tooth in half. But the weird thing is, I woke up in my dog's water bowl, kind of like mini seizure. So I was like biting through my lip. And once I came to, I was completely sober, 100% sober. And it was that was the like the catalyst of like, okay, you gotta do something. This isn't working. And
How
so
long of a I'm trying to get a timeline here. I mean, did it escalate that quickly that was very shortly after?
yeah, it was very, very quick because of all these little things that started coming out. She started telling me things about certain things at home, and certain times that they hung out. And then certain friends would say, yeah, I saw something would happen, but they never told me
Oh, and that was your coping skill, so of course it escalated that quickly.
that.
You're lucky to be alive, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know how. It was a very interesting evening, but I somehow tried to make it work, marriage counseling, just to see, but it
Sure.
obviously didn't work. But in hindsight, this is the crazy part. Um, excuse me. So the job that I originally went out there for, there was this other girl that was the second employee that was hired. I was the first. She was also going through a divorce at the same time I was. So she was actually sleeping in the office because she couldn't go home. And so we kind of bonded over this, like, we both were like, relationships, no, we need to take care of ourselves first. So we helped each other through our divorces.
Mhm.
But God is very, very funny. He kind of was like, actually, this is the person that I wanted you to meet. You had to go through some weird stuff to get to this, but this is who I wanted you to meet. And it was the craziest thing. We would just help each other cope through this weird madness that is life. And after the divorce, we were talking to each other of like, you're a really good person. I really want you to be with someone that appreciates you.
Right.
And then we were both thinking, well, I actually don't want you to be with someone else. I kind of want you to be with me. And
Right.
so then it started getting on the mend. And then I was getting healthier and healthier, physically, mentally. And it's now we've been married almost 8 years. And so it's been this really amazing God thing that was like, you're going to go through fire to get to this point
Yeah.
that I want you to get at. So trust me, just hang on. So.
Yeah. And it's amazing. So I was reading something, and this made me think of it. So I hope you don't mind if we have like a little bit of a sidebar spirituality conversation, but I'm part of like this book club here. And one of the things that we were reading last night, actually, so today is Friday, August 29th, was about how it's not just all our days are numbered and God knows what they are, but it's also the happenings of each of those days have been counted before us. And so knowing that it wasn't a punishment, there was a part of you and your character that needed to be grown and refined. There was some self-discovery that needed to happen. There was some reliance on figuring out what, not just like your coping skills, but what are you really about when push comes to shove, when the rug is snatched out from underneath you, and then you find out that the floor actually isn't there either.
Yeah, it's true.
What are you going to do? And I think it's amazing that you're alive, because it sounded like you could have, I mean, if you got your hands on a drug overdose real fast,
True.
you know, and if you're having seizures, you know, that kind of stuff can kill you. You can have a stroke and it can
Right.
kill you.
True.
And you've gone through all of this, and now there's just this immense joy that comes with resilience. You know, like we find out what we're made of, and we find out a lot of our purpose. And I think that a lot of that has to do with our resilience and our our acceptance of where we are and who we are, to then open more doors.
Agreed. I mean, faith was such a huge thing. Like I was always a believer before, but something about this, like I was definitely protected and taken care of. But there was also one thing I forgot to mention. This is crazy. So months and months before any of this happened, I was at the grocery store and I was getting some eggs, and this really cute little lady was next to me. We're talking about the eggs, and randomly, out of nowhere, she like grabbed my hand and she said, "Hey, I just want to let you know you might go through something, but God has you. Don't worry." And I was like, "All right, interesting." No idea what that meant. And then fast forward all these years, and I was like, "Wow, the egg lady, that was crazy."
Egg lady.
Yeah.
But I love that, because now you know what I mean? It's like these little moments, these the like whispers. I believe that spirit recognizes spirit. And you know, there was something in her that was just like, imagine like being in her shoes and just telling a stranger
Yeah. Yeah.
something like
I
that.
don't know you, but I want to say this to you. Yeah, I can imagine from her perspective.
Yeah, that's wild. So let's dive into that like span of your drinking and how that escalated and what that was like for you. Because I'm curious to know, like, where was your self-worth? What were you telling yourself in those moments versus now?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. So I kind of felt really, I guess, alone because I was in a new state, no friends. I was starting a job that I hardly knew anybody. So that was like relationship building, but I just didn't feel like myself. And I'm an extrovert. I'm a theater kid. So I'm always positive and going, and I'll talk to anybody. And so it was a weird mental shift for me to like break down and just to
Yeah.
be quiet and really depressed all the time. I've never felt that way my entire life. So it was such a weird feeling to go through. And so I think that drinking was kind of a way to, I don't know, maybe get myself happy out of that depressed state in a weird way. I don't know how to explain it, but it was I think that's the reason why I guess I got to drink.
So would you classify yourself as an alcoholic now that you've seen this like pattern, or do you think you just had this like bumpy relationship with the substance in a time frame?
I think it was a bumpy relationship because I've never like I would periodically drink, like not a big deal, but I think it was just that time period where I was so alone. I I just I don't know. I don't know why I drank so much to in that time period because I've never done that in my life. So it was I think it was the only thing that was a coping mechanism at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. To kind of I guess block it and numb it maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's amazing, like the links will go when we hit bouts of depression, right? Like I've gone through something where I can look back and I was wildly depressed, and I'm like, man, where did that come from? You know what? And I'm a true full blown alcoholic, but these behaviors were outside of those parameters. And there's it's really odd to look back and be like, I don't know where that came from.
Agreed. Yeah. Completely agree. And it's funny when I think about that whole time, years and years ago now, I always think, would I do it differently, or how would I, how would I? You kind of question all the things that happen,
Right.
try to piece it together. So it's really odd.
So I'm curious, what were your resources during this time frame? Like what helped you, because I know you met this one person,
Mhm.
but what did it look like reclaiming your identity and taking care of your mental health during this?
It was a little bit of my now wife, and church, because I would go to church in and out periodically before. Faith has always been a thing, but going to church has just been a like a hit or miss when you're a kid and stuff. But going back into it and then being part of like we're a part of the church band, and so getting into that and you know just being involved in that kind of family, if you will,
Yeah.
mix in with my then wife, it was like this really loving kind of this kind of thing of like, I know you've gone through this, and you know I'm not judging you, let's you know let me just kind of help guide you through it. And so I had her, my pastor at the time would always just hang out with me. We would have lunch and just kind of talk about life, and it was just this slow kind of multiple hug kind of thing that kind of led me to getting a little bit more clear in my mental state.
Yeah. And I love that that's where you found healing, because I feel like there is this stigma where that's where you should be able to go. But if you don't come as this polished and clean version of yourself, you're going to be looked down on. Like, you can't put your messy on the table at church.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
So, and that's just like from my own experience, because I was also raised in a certain context. And then I had this amazing relationship with, you know, my, I guess in like the recovery world, like my higher power, but with God. And then all of a sudden I became an addict. It's like I unlocked this version of myself in college. And it was this like part of my personality that I didn't know I had until I fed it with alcohol. And I remember questioning, like, why would you make me this way when I was on such a like normal path as a normal human, and then just like reveal this huge giant crack in who I am,
Yeah.
and then go through all of this, like, what have I done? And that's I guess, to my point earlier about, you know, like, we were made very intentionally, and our circumstances weren't made to break us. They were made to, from what I know, they were made to drive us closer to him.
I agree completely. Yeah. And I think I was fully meant, excuse me, to go through that to get to where I am now.
Yeah.
It's like there's certain things in my life. It's so interesting. I actually met my now wife when I was with my ex-wife. We visited Nashville for something, and I met this group of people in church, and she was part of that group, and I didn't know that then. So it's like I met her before I knew her.
Yeah.
So God was like, here.
Interesting.
So it's just, I don't know, which is really interesting.
I love that. So what is something that God has taught you about yourself in this experience that maybe you didn't know before?
Man, faith was a big thing. Like even more so, it's even though I felt alone, looking back on all of it, I really wasn't alone. And that like guidance and like the guarding me from getting hurt, which miraculously I don't know how it didn't happen, specifically walking down the street. That was a big thing. I think faith, like adding more to my faith, kind of one thing that I learned. Then also about myself, of like, you know, I went through this horrible thing, what this person did, but it doesn't make me any different of a person. It doesn't make me feel like I'm less of a person. I can't be
Yeah.
this like man for somebody, you know what I mean? This husband, this boyfriend for someone. I'm good who I am, you know. I mean, obviously I have faults, and I you know, but I'm not as mentally and physically just weak as I thought I was because of everything.
Yeah. And I think that that's really easy to do, is to let other people's like actions define or add or take away value of who
Yeah.
we are, right? It's like, well, I wouldn't be with this person, you know, if we weren't in some way like equally yoked, and if they were this broken, then that means you know, I, there's a part of us, I think, like just in our human nature, where we attach the way that others act and how they treat us as part of our value.
Agreed. Yeah.
And I just don't think that that's true. I
Yeah.
think we have to have a source in our life that tells us who we are, and we get to believe that truth over what the world tells us that we are, or what other people, other broken people may attach to us.
Right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead. I'm very invested in your spiritual journey.
And it's, if whoever's watching, right, this video, and it's if you are in that same state of like divorce is horrible, but it's, no matter what your circumstances are, what your situation is, it's, there's more. I mean, it's this is just a momentarily thing in your life you'll get past.
Mhm.
And, I don't know, specifically why something like that would happen to you in your relationship, but it's, you just have to have faith and be strong with everything. And the whole cheating aspect is such a tough topic because my dad did that when I was a kid. And so it was a very touchy subject. So I think that also added on to the plate of things.
Yeah. So how do you walk through this with integrity and dignity? Because I feel like it'd be really tempting to be a messy person going through that.
Right. Honestly, it's easier than I thought it would be, just because of how healthy my marriage is and how healthy I am. It's like I've seen the worst and now I feel the best of things. And so how I am currently, it's like there's just so much good happening.
Mhm.
And whenever something goes wrong in my life, I'm like, this is not the worst I've experienced. This is just a hurdle I'll get over. It's just a little hump.
Right.
And so I kind of think of that. It's like, you've got me through the fire. Everything else we're good. I got this.
Yeah. And I'm I guess I'm also wondering like how okay, so I'll show my messy cards. I'm very prone to like gossip and oh, I just need to vent, and like I don't need. Nobody needs to vent. And that's something that is a trap that I fall into a lot. There will be this very small opening in a door and I'll just blindly step through it without thinking twice about my spiritual fitness. And that's just something that I know about myself and I have to be aware of. How do you go about like still having kindness towards somebody or about a situation that was that difficult?
See, it's interesting. I have this really odd superpower of positivity. So it's no matter what the situation is, I'm always like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll get over this. And so I guess it's just that positivity of, I know, I believe in everyone has a good side, and so I
Mhm.
am very um trustworthy. So I'll let's say you're like, I need a place to stay. I'm like, come on, we have a bunch of empty rooms here in our house. Go and stay. Like, my door is always open. Like, that's the kind of person I am. And
Yeah.
so keeping that positivity is just the key for me. It's like I said before, it's I've gone through fire, and I'm everything else will be fine from this point on.
Yeah. So did you go through grief after the episode with drinking, or was that your grief? Like, have you I'm fascinated because I've never been divorced. And I'm very young in my marriage, even though I'm in my 30s. We waited quite some time to be married, but I've like watched other people and I've seen people absolutely fall apart and go into vices that are very
Mhm.
dangerous, just like your story. But then I've seen them like not grieve after that. It's like they kind of dumped it all at the bottom of a bottle and then like swept the rest under the rug. But is that a way to grieve, or is there something else that like you have to hand over to God, like after looking at it literally with sober eyes and processing it that way?
Definitely handing over to God, because I had a really interesting experience of, like, I didn't really grieve that much, because when I got into my now marriage,
Yeah.
that's what I thought a relationship should be. And so it's what I thought a marriage should be. And so it kind of like, I don't say overshadowed, but it kind of like, I guess you say throw it under the rug of, like, that's something that is not a marriage you thought it was going to be, but this is
Mhm.
actually what a marriage is. And so it's that it was such a healthy transition. And
Yep.
it's a horrible way to say it, but it was a healthy transition. And so I guess it was understanding how a healthy marriage looks and feels. And so, of course, I didn't want to get a divorce. I wanted to try to save what I could. But looking back on it, I'm like, I'm kind of glad it didn't work out. If that's horrible to say, but I'm kind of glad because I can see what I was wanting or needing.
No, but you get to see the goodness, right? And
Yeah.
and I think it's really hard to be upset when God shows you blessings.
Yeah.
It's hard to be like, "Oh, but I could have that," but I think it's really beautiful how this has played out that, you did what I would consider maybe not the honorable thing in the way of like the drinking, but of trying to stay in that commitment because it's a covenant that you make with one another
Mhm.
and to try to honor that and I think it's such a testimony to like how our hearts can be changed when we're not the ones trying to manage them ourselves
True.
of I accept that this was not a good situation and I receive whatever you have next for me. And it just like, it doesn't make a lot of room for that bitterness and that resentment to walk forward with us. And why would you want that when the door swung wide open into this beautiful new blessing that God's just like, run in freedom, enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one thing though that I did kind of resent is how I handled it. I shouldn't have handled it. But obviously in the moment you're going to do what you feel in the moment. But I know there's different ways I could have handled the situation. But it was just a quick kind of thing that just like turned my world upside down. So it was all of a sudden kind of thing. So you don't really know what to do when something that quick happens.
Yeah. But I think it's okay to have those things where it's like, I don't regret my past necessarily, but I'm not like proud of it. Like I have sorrow and I have had grief over maybe how I've handled things. I'm allowed to be upset at myself, but I think it's what we do with those feelings, right? Like you said, of just like handing it over to God and being like, this is very heavy for me to carry forever. You're much stronger than I am. Can you please take this? And trusting that it's going to be removed from you and that yes, you handled something maybe incorrectly, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're this like terrible person because of it.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I think that
I agree.
it's such a hard mind shift for a lot of us where it's like having joy and sorrow at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And I always play, I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one that does this. I always play in my head the like what if game of like,
Mm,
what if I didn't go to college and met her? You know what I mean? Like the steps that led me to where I am right now.
mhm.
Like I wouldn't, it's just an interesting game that I play of like, I wouldn't have this career because I wouldn't have moved to Seattle to meet, it's a very weird thing of all the stuff that has happened in my life to where I am now. If it played out differently, if I made different adjustments,
Yeah.
you know?
Would it be fair to say that you're not just in love with your life today, but you're in love with the entire story?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great, yeah, the entire story. I agree with you on that one. Yeah. Cause it is my story. It is my journey. And I mean, no one's going to have this perfect life and everything's going to work the
Yeah,
way that they had planned. Things are going to happen.
sure.
But no, and I agree with you what you said. I don't kind of regret my past. Like what happened. If I had to do it all over again to get where I am now, I would, because of how healthy my marriage is and how healthy, like I would totally do it all over again. Yeah, no, I agree with you on a lot of that.
That's powerful. Like, I make goosebumps because that's such a level of acceptance. That's so deep, and that is such a supernatural thing that we are granted, where we can say, "I would do it again," knowing that it caused a lot of pain and it caused a lot of damage, and it was not pretty, and it was not, like, honorable in any way, but it was part of the plan to get me where I am, and I love where I am so much that I literally wouldn't trade it.
Yeah.
I think that that's remarkable, Chris.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So if somebody is, maybe going through something that is similar to your story, or they're in a hard place, or they just maybe are afraid of what they're capable of, right? Like they've tapped into that part of themselves. What kind of advice would you give them of where to start, specifically if maybe they don't have a relationship with God or they've been maybe hurt or feel some kind of pain towards like religious organizations?
I say definitely talk with people that are close to you, family, friends, like communicating, getting what's in your head out and having that dialogue with someone is such a healthy thing because I mean, you're also going to get the feedback of what people are saying, but you're going to hear what you are actually thinking and you're going to think about of like, wow, those words came out of my mouth
Yeah.
and it's going to kind of snap you in a way of like, okay, I recognize X, Y, and Z, and then the other person you're talking to can kind of give you a little bit more to fill in those gaps. So I think that communication with friends, family, brother, sister, whatever it may be, is a great place to start.
And if somebody maybe is plugged into a church but feeling shame because they're showing up messy,
I
what
mean,
would you do them?
if like you said, if you still are in church and you have that shame, it's hard to kind of break through that shame thought process, but they're there to help you. Like they're not going to judge you. They know life happens, things happen in life, and they'll guide you through it through prayer, through let's meet once a week for some coffee. They'll be there for you, but you got to start that communication. You got to start that. I am going through something. Do you think you could spend some time to talk with me about it? I think starting that, acknowledging it, is the best place to start.
Yeah. I think it's if you want to be seen, you can't be afraid of being seen, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's a hard step. And I feel like if maybe you aren't finding that where you are, it's okay to look in other places
Mm.
to find that too, right? Like that's the right community of people is, I think, part of that plan. And it's okay to take those steps and it might not pan out. I tried to find a group to help me with my stuff, and I went through a couple of them and I really wanted to give up, and I was like, this just isn't worth it. And I was going to these different small groups, and the one that I landed in is the one where I actually met my husband.
That's great.
And I was in the middle of like, I need people to pray over me, and I was new to the city. So like I said, in a very not similar situation as far as divorce, but my situation involves an adult male that's like in prison now for like hurting people. I just needed support.
Yeah.
And it took me stepping up and sharing my story in a way that I could be known. And I found myself surrounded by people that just wanted to be there. And even if they couldn't understand it and they couldn't relate to it, it didn't cause fear in them standing beside me. And that was a whole new experience for me. And that really shaped the way that I approach a faith-based community now.
That makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, you were guided into where you needed to be, essentially. You're supposed to be in that specific group for a reason. So yeah. I don't think anything is like a fluke. Things are set up the way they're supposed to be. You're pushed in a gentle way to the areas that you need to be in life.
Yeah. And even if we pick the wrong one, I feel like we're redirected.
Yeah. Wrong turn, Chris. Go that way. Yeah.
Right. Good can still come when we're just like, oh, I think I'll take the map now. Our little tiny wills just don't stand in comparison to a God that loves us.
Agreed.
Well, Chris, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing this with me.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And it's, I'm one of those people that's an open book, so I'll answer any questions. And so that's, if my story somehow resonates with someone, awesome. That's the goal.
And if somebody maybe feels like they've connected with you and they want to reach out, what's the best way for somebody to find you?
Yeah, I mean, you can send me an email. It's my first initial last name, so Chavez 266 at Gmail. So send me an email. I would love to connect if you need any help.
All right, guys, you heard him. Reach out, send emails. And to everybody else, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.